The Arnold Palmer Invitational just turned into an absolute nightmare for Rory McIlroy. Bay Hill is playing like a brutal U.S. Open, the greens are like concrete, and the pressure has finally caused one of the biggest stars on the PGA Tour to completely snap. Rumors are swirling that Rory has had enough and wants out of the tournament. But what exactly pushed him over the edge? And is the PGA Tour pushing these players too far? Welcome to Golf Backstage. Let's uncover the explosive truth behind Rory's Bay Hill meltdown. A practice round at Bay Hill is usually meant to be a quiet, methodical warm-up. It is a chance for the best players in the world to figure out the firm greens of Arnold Palmer's legendary masterpiece before the cameras turn on and the pressure spikes. For Shane Lowry, it was supposed to be a desperate search for solace. He was walking the fairways alongside his longtime friend Rory McIlroy, nursing the fresh, open wounds of a total collapse just a few days prior. He was looking for perspective. What he received instead was a blast of raw, completely unfiltered honesty from the world number 2. McIlroy didn't just offer his friend a shoulder to lean on. He used that practice round to launch a calculated, devastating verbal missile at a subject that has been simmering beneath the surface of professional golf for months. By the time they walked off the 18th green, McIlroy had drawn a permanent line in the sand, issuing a massive reality check that currently has the entire DP World Tour and LIV golf scrambling. To understand exactly how the power dynamic of the Ryder Cup just shifted, we have to look at the explosion that has everyone at Bay Hill buzzing. There are very few relationships in the modern era of professional golf as authentic as the bond between Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry. The Irish connection runs incredibly deep. They have been practice partners for years, fierce competitors on Sundays, and absolute brothers in the trenches of the Ryder Cup. So when Lowry arrived in Orlando, he was still visibly smarting from a nightmare at PGA National. He had the Cognizant Classic firmly in his grasp before suffering back-to-back double bogeys in the infamous bear trap, watching a guaranteed trophy slip right through his fingers. McIlroy was waiting for him on the tee box. To build his friend back up, McIlroy reminded Lowry that he had suffered the exact same fate, a disastrous double bogey on the 18th at PGA National back in 2014, and then went on to win 2 major championships that exact same year. It was the perfect veteran advice. 2 bad swings do not dictate the rest of your season, but the conversation didn't stop at swing mechanics and mental resilience. McIlroy has never been the type of player to hide behind carefully constructed public relations statements. When the golf world's attention fixed squarely on Bay Hill, the talking points violently shifted away from the $20 million signature event and focused entirely on the Spanish elephant in the room, Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm has always operated on his own terms. The man they call the Spanish Bulldog does not bend to authority. He refuses to compromise when he believes he holds the moral high ground, and he generally couldn't care less about public opinion. Those stubborn, unyielding qualities are exactly what made him a generational talent and a massive fan favorite. But right now, those exact same qualities have isolated him on an island. While the rest of the golf world was preparing for the Florida swing, Rahm was standing at a microphone in Hong Kong, preparing for LIV Golf's latest international stop, and he decided to drop a complete verbal grenade. When asked about his ongoing standoff with the DP World Tour over his Ryder Cup eligibility, Rahm didn't hold back. He openly accused the European executives of trying to exploit his star power. He claimed they were trying to benefit from his global impact while simultaneously punishing him, but it was his final choice of words that sent shockwaves across the Atlantic. Rahm looked directly at the reporters and stated that the European Tour was actively extorting players like himself. The word extortion landed like an absolute bomb, and when that quote made its way to the practice tee at Bay Hill, Rory McIlroy completely stopped being diplomatic. To fully grasp why McIlroy fired back so aggressively, you have to understand the actual mechanics of the contract Rahm was offered. The DP World Tour had quietly placed a massive olive branch on the table for their LIV Golf defectors. It was a conditional release agreement designed to legally bypass the strict rules against playing in conflicting events. The terms were remarkably simple. The players had to pay their outstanding fines, which reportedly hovered around the $3 million mark, withdraw all of their pending legal appeals against the tour, and agree to play a minimum of 6 European events. For context, the standard membership requirement is 4 events. In exchange, all future fines would be wiped clean, and their precious Ryder Cup eligibility would be fully restored. The mathematics of the locker room spoke volumes. 8 prominent LIV players, including Tyrrell Hatton, Hatton, Thomas Dietrich, and Laurie Cantor looked at the paperwork, realized it was an incredible lifeline, and signed it immediately. Only one man refused. Jon Rahm drew his line at the 6-event mandate, demanding it be lowered back to 4. When reporters asked McIlroy about Rahm's explosive extortion claims, the Northern Irishman did not mince his words. He completely rejected Rahm's narrative, publicly stating that the DP World Tour had actually offered a remarkably generous deal. McIlroy is uniquely positioned to see the entire global chessboard, and he pointed to the brutal realities of the PGA Tour to prove his point. He reminded everyone of the massive, crushing penalties that Brooks Koepka had to swallow just to be allowed back into the PGA Tour's ecosystem. Koepka was forced to forfeit 5 years of highly lucrative equity shares, was completely banned from the FedEx Cup bonus pools, and had to write a $5 million check to charity. Compared to the financial bloodbath Koepka endured, asking Jon Rahm to simply play 2 extra golf tournaments in Europe seemed like a microscopic sacrifice. McIlroy bluntly pointed out that there was a very clear reason why 8 out of the 9 guys took the deal without hesitation. He stated that the DP World Tour has every right to protect its business model, and that the organization had already bent over backward to accommodate the guys who took the Saudi money. But the most brilliant, calculated moment of McIlroy's response came when he addressed Rahm's deepest complaint. Rahm was particularly furious that the DP World Tour demanded the right to dictate the location of 2 out of his 6 required tournaments. He argued that he should have the absolute freedom to play wherever he wants, without executives controlling his calendar. McIlroy saw the glaring hypocrisy in that statement and immediately pounced on it. With a slight knowing smile, McIlroy pointed out the irony of Rahm complaining about schedule control when he had just signed away his entire competitive freedom to LIV Golf. McIlroy noted that Rahm is contractually obligated to play all 14 LIV events regardless of where they are held. He brilliantly twisted the knife, joking that he was absolutely sure Jon didn't genuinely want to fly all the way to South Africa the following week, but he was going to do it anyway because his new bosses told him to. The issue wasn't about the burden of travel, it was purely a battle of ego. Rahm simply did not want to admit that a traditional golf institution still held any authority over his professional identity. All of this corporate drama ultimately funnels into one singular historic event, the 2027 Ryder Cup. The stakes were permanently raised just hours before McIlroy's comments when Luke Donald was officially confirmed to return as the European captain at Adair Manor in Ireland. Donald is attempting to pull off a historic three-peat, and the continuity of his leadership is something the European locker room desperately relies on, but that massive home soil advantage is severely threatened if their ultimate apex predator isn't legally allowed to put on the uniform. Despite the obvious need for Rahm's firepower, McIlroy laid down the absolute law. He stated with unwavering conviction that the Ryder Cup is bigger than any one person. He reminded the media and directly reminded Rahm that players simply pass through the system. The platform itself is what matters. He argued that every professional should be deeply grateful to even have a stage like the Ryder Cup to showcase their skills, and that no single player's ego can ever be allowed to eclipse the shield. It was a pointed, definitive warning delivered with the heavy, undeniable authority of a 5-time major champion who has served as the emotional backbone of European golf for over a decade.